I'm recording this now.
Okay, so I got a thing on my screen. I got to say, got it. All right. No, I'll tell you, the only names I remember were Sergeant Dupe, who was the team sergeant after
Klaus.
whoever it was, Pepe, somebody, the old guy from World War II was there. We had, when we first started out, you know, that the captain of that team, Hugh Shelton, you know, became a 4-star general later. And
So you were there when Shelton was there.
yeah, I was his XO and his CAPO.
Okay, so you were there before me.
Yeah, I was there from June to November.
Gentlemen, there will be another session next week. That will be A104. This afternoon will be A104 later. And this is 105.
Okay, I was at both, so I'm double duty here. So,
and you're traveling though, right? So you're not going to be with us that long,
right?
Okay. Well, so if you want to get a word in edgewise with McElroy on A105, since you're not going to be here this afternoon, they'll take your chance. But we've got people spanning from Jim Radford, who was with the original B team, that went to Kham Duc for reasons totally unknown to anybody, to McElroy and Bob, who were at Kham Duc as an A team, to Edison Seal and Rod. I think you were at Nong, right?
Yes, for a little while.
Yeah. So we've got 3 different groups of people here. All being A105 or the B team in one version or another. Jim, how long were you actually there at Kham Duc before the B team moved out of here?
Not really very long. We were there in January when they moved the entire 5th from Fort Bragg to permanent relocation to Vietnam. And we were assigned to Kham Duc in January, I think through maybe June. And then we went to Han Quan as a team. And by the way, Jim, there was a medic on my team named Jimmy McElroy.
He was at McElroy.
Yeah, it's spelled a little different. Yeah, it's capital MC, capital ELROY.
Yeah, that's the most common spelling of the name.
Yeah.
Mine happens just to be MCLEROY.
Yeah, I think from Steve's research, I believe he's probably deceased, but he was one of our team medics, Jimmy McElroy.
What was the purpose of that B team there? What A teams did you control out of Kham Duc?
There were several. I didn't have time to really go back. It's been a long time, 57 years, something like that.
I had Steve. I know some of them. Aro and Taco. They later closed, but they were up in the Ashau area, and the Kham Duc B team was supervising them until they closed them out.
Well, the story I have on Kham Duc is that it was a really bad place as far as weather was concerned. So that your ability to support the other camps when you were likely to be socked in should have presented a bit of a problem.
Well, and it was also very difficult for planes to fly in there because people, in hindsight, it reminded everybody of Dien Bien Phu, with the hills all around the airstrip.
You know what? An actual veteran of Dien Bien Phu, Vietnamese guy who had about, I think, 30 or 40 years in the NVA, the Pavin, came out there years later, about 30 years later, when I went back with a casualty recovery team, joint services, and the Vietnamese government was cooperating with them because they were getting paid. But anyway, he was a veteran of Dien Bien Phu and had been wounded there, had a scar across his face and all that. And I asked him how, that compared, because the comparison did occur to me also. And he said mainly it's just that Dien Bien Phu was a much larger place. That Cam Duck was kind of like a miniature version of that.
But they didn't have an unopposed ability to bring heavy artillery up to the top of the peaks around you. If they were doing that, you would have seen them.
Well, if they'd done that, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. For the rest of you, Jim McElroy spent Mother's Day at Cam Duck in 1968. At Mother's Day at Cam Duck in 1968, it was a sort of not a place that you want to bring your mother to. He wrote a very good book called Bait that's out there, describing the battles that happened there at the time.
Very good book.
Oh, thank you. Guess Steve's looking for his copy.
Bill Martin gave it to me.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I was
At
curious.
Hatan, one of the yards that had been maybe the one you're talking about, Halang, do you remember him?
No, I can't say that I do.
He was one of the yard chiefs, and he had been there. So, okay, I'll let you guys go back.
When Shelton was being considered for chairman of the Joint Chiefs, a reporter contacted me and said he found out that I had served with Shelton on the A team, A104 at Hatan, and asked me if I had anything I could, personal anecdotes or any details he could put in his article. And I told him that Shelton was a paragon of virtue who didn't drink or smoke, except the one problem: he had a Montagnard teenage wife there at that time. And the guy said, "Can you substantiate that?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I have pictures of the marriage." And he said, "Well, you sent them to me," so I did. And it was what happened was that the chief of the Hre, HRE, you may recall that was the name of the tribe.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And he had a ceremony down at his place, which is down at the foot of the hill of the camp there, to welcome Shelton and our team when we first got there. And they tied a buffalo to a post and stabbed him to death as he frantically circled around the post, and he finally collapsed, and they cut his throat and filled a jug of, with his blood, mixed it with rice wine, put some reed straws in there, and offered it to us to drink. We had been told that's going to happen. And so so what we did was we pretended to drink. We put the straw in our mouth and made a sucking like that, but I didn't have the courage to drink warm blood, I really didn't. But anyway, to honor him, the chief gave him one of his daughters as a wife. Yeah. And so as not to offend the chief, Shelton took the girl with an interpreter up to the camp, and he told her through the interpreter that he was the Christian and could not have more than one wife. But if he could have more than one wife, he would choose her to be his second wife. And so they stayed up there long enough to give the impression that they were consummating the marriage, and then they brought her back without insulting the chief. But I told the reporter that, and then I later told Shelton about it, and he laughed. He said, "Yeah, he knew that was the one thing in his history that might be controversial: his teenage Montagnard marriage."
I will send you guys pictures of that buffalo ceremony. I'll put them on. I'll send them to everybody. I've got some pictures of that.
Yeah, me too.
So do you guys all stay in touch, or have you stayed in touch over the years?
I have with Shelton, but in fact, he endorsed our book um, very graciously. But otherwise, no, I have not.
Didn't he fall off the roof and hurt himself?
What?
Didn't Shelton fall off the roof or cutting a tree down, hurt himself?
Recently, yes.
Right.
What did he do? I didn't understand.
I heard that he fell off a roof or he fell
Oh,
off a
yeah,
tree.
yeah, he did, and paralyzed himself for about a year. Yes,
Yeah.
right. It wasn't a roof. He was trimming a tree. Is up on a ladder, fell off and injured his spine, and they didn't think he's going to walk again. He had like a year of rehabilitation, but he's in such good shape. You know, he gets up early every morning, runs for several miles, and he's not overweight or anything, and very healthy and athletic and so forth. So he was able to recover from that devastating injury.
Oh. So I was curious, Steve, how you brought the this reunion together at this particular time.
Well, this is a series of reunions I'm doing. My website, specialforcesbooks.com, has a list of each camp and a list of people at each camp. And about 3-4 months ago, I had to do some work on one of the camps in Two Corps. And I realized that, time is slipping by, and I've got one opportunity to go back and revise that website and update it, because I hadn't really touched it in about 8 years. It's been, it's a hard thing to update. It takes a lot of time. So I decided I was going to go through the whole website, every camp in Vietnam, and update it. And I started with Two Corps. Now I'm into I Corps. And the idea is that, having gone through the trouble of contacting all the people, and because it's so easy now and to do Zoom, that I'll set up a Zoom meeting for each camp. So I'll do probably about an average of a camp per week. So I figure I'm going to be here sometime next year, finishing this off. And
You've got some work.
I have quite a bit of work to do. I mean, this I-Corps is easy. You only had basically 10 camps, but 3 and 4 Corps are going to be a bitch. But what the nice thing is I now have a file, or a what do you call it? Mailing list in my email box. So I can just click on A104 or A105, bing, send an email out to everybody at the same time.
That's great.
So it's not difficult to set up a meeting like this. And you all have basically the same list. When I sent you the email, all those names that are on the top of that list are the people at your camp. So it's nothing for you to do the same thing and just say, hey guys, I'd like to get together. And I'm hoping that a lot of people do that, because we're all dropping off at an increasing rate. And this is going to be the last opportunity for us all to get together and go over things.
Right.
I'm surprised how few people there are this morning or this afternoon in this session, because the level of enthusiasm I had from the people I talked to indicated that there would be a lot higher number of people involved. But actually, of the 2 camps, the 3 camps, the 3 groups of people here, I only found about 27, I guess it was. And that's small. Usually I'm 30 to 40 people for each camp. This afternoon, we're doing A104, Hatan, and I have 47 people on that mailing list.
Oh, by the way, did you guys know that when when Cam Duck was abandoned, there was two missions. The A team had the mission of training CIDG basic, trainees, and then we had the SOG launch base there. But
Yes.
they moved that basic training thing to Hatan, and Hatan took over what Cam Duck was doing for the CIDG program.
Well, ultimately they moved it to Bateau and set up a training center in 1969, about September of 69.
Uh-huh.
They had a formal training center there.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed you were missing quite a few people from my years, which was 66, 67. And so I'm going to get those to you. I have rosters for those years. You were missing, I don't know, at least a half dozen of team
Actual team members. I was missing
Yeah.
off the list. Well, that's bad. I wish you
Well-
got to me earlier. I would have rousted them out.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice it till now, but because I was looking for particular names, and they weren't there. But I've seen that happen in other lists of cammed up. So it's interesting of why the roster would be empty.
Well,
in some
everything
cases.
I put together on that website is sort of like intelligence work. You get a little snippet of information,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
got to put it in. So I've got to go find somebody's name is going to appear on a set of Vietnamese jump wings, and I've got to figure out where he was.
Yeah.
Give me an example of one name that's not there.
Well, gee, I'm trying to think right now. That's interesting because I thought more about the names that were there than weren't. I'll send some stuff to you right away.
Well, I was just hoping if you had one at the top of your head, tip of the tongue, I could look and see what I've
Look it
got.
up. Yeah. I'll send you some names when I get off and can check which ones were.
Well,
But anyway, thanks for all you've done. Thanks for what you've done.
I want to get your
Thank you, Steve.
I want to get your names for all the people, but I was hoping that by looking for one now as an example, I'd be able to do something about it. Hold on here for a minute.
All right.
Melvin Dodge was one.
Dodge is I had him. DODGE. Yeah. I have him for both A105 and A106. He should be on the roster here, which I just pulled up. What did he do?
I think he was heavy weapons at the old Cam Duck, and I ran into him right after they evacuated the camp.
Dodge is right here. So I had him on the list. I had over here, for example, I have no intel person at that time. And it seemed to me there should be at least somebody there. So I have these blank lines over here where I think I'm missing somebody. But for the most part, I'm surprised to hear that I've got a lot of people missing. Although you may have the clue as to all the people that I am missing. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
Steve, I can tell you for my B team, you had all the names on there correct.
Well, on your B team is different. B
Yeah.
team, I had the orders. So if you got the orders, it's hard to mess that up.
Did you get the photographs I sent you, the team photos?
Not yet, but on the other hand, the mailbox isn't full yet. The mailman hasn't been by, and
I had a photograph of the team while we were still at Fort Bragg, just before we left for Vietnam, and
Mhm.
and then the team photo there when we got to Vietnam.
Well, I look forward to getting that. I'm sorry I didn't have it here at this point to show you all, but we were young at one point.
Steve, I was able to interview most of the A team at Cam Duck when I was there. A lot of them have died since, but I could give you those names, but it won't do any good.
I've got those names. I found them for you. So I've got them on my roster. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Missing off the roster.
Yeah.
And so you were a great help in getting that roster together because you kept telling me who to look for.
Yeah. I hope that Bob Henderson, who was the A-team leader at that time, is still around. I sent him an email the other day, but I didn't get any answer.
He's supposed to be in San Antonio. I can't get him to answer. All the old numbers I have don't work. And
Yeah.
I can't get a line between his current address and the old addresses I had for him.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, sometimes I can find people, but sometimes I can't. A number of people, Jim, for example, I found you, so I must be having done something right. No, Jim Radford. I know where
Well,
Jim McElroy was.
And I really do appreciate it because in all honesty, I pretty much lost touch with most of the guys on my team years ago.
Well, most of the guys in your team are gone.
Yeah, half of them.
But somewhere along the line, I had an old email of yours, and it was in a company that you were in, and I was able to get hold of that company, and they were able to pass me back to you. So
yeah, well, I appreciate it very much.
And Jim McElroy, for those of you who didn't know, is one of my OCS classmates. So we go back a long way. And we've been involved in other projects. I try to help him get information for his book, and he's written a lot of stuff for the magazines that I've put together and books that I put together. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, but when are you going to send me a check? That's what I want to know.
I send you a check all the time. Just keeps on bouncing. I don't know why. I should bookmark this here. We put out a series of books, 14 books, 14 books on the Vietnam War. It's quite an interesting exercise. But one book per year, and they cover topics. It's not like a narrative history of the war, but a collection of articles for each year that are pertinent. And in 1973 article, I have an article on what happened to the camps. And Nong was still functioning in July of 74 as a border ranger camp. That's kind of impressive.
Yeah.
Most of the camps, well, when we left, the camps were turned into border ranger battalions. That's the way they were styled. And they actually came under the Ranger Command. And I would have thought that Abrams would have put in different officers at each camp. But he didn't. And he left the guys, the LLDB that we had in our camps, who for the most part we didn't like very much, and who'd been ripping off the yards of the camp. And he left them in charge of those camps.
What camp is that, Steve?
All of the camps.
Oh, I thought you said your camp. I didn't quite get it.
Oh, no, all camps were turned over left in the hands of the LLDB who ran the camps as the camp commanders.
Yeah.
As new Rangers. They changed the color of their beret. The only thing good that happened was that he got rid of the Vietnamese Special Forces High Command. All the B teams, C teams, and High Command disappeared, and they went under the Ranger Command. And these guys are out in the middle of nowhere with this camps, and they had to survive and trust in the battalion of Montagnards they had, who they had been ripping off for years. Somehow they became better leaders. That's the surprising factor. They did not have the support that they had when Special Forces were there. There was no money coming in. There was no supplies coming in from the C team. They had to survive on their own. And many of them did spectacularly well in surviving. So that was kind of a surprise to me.
Well, getting rid of the LLDB is one of the best things they could ever do. That
They didn't get rid of the LLDB. They left the LLDB at the camps in control.
they left.
They got rid of the higher elements of the LLDB,
I see.
to
Yeah.
whom the camp commander had to pay money.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so maybe that was the factor that helped. But also, when he realized he's out here at Dock Toe or Dock Peck with 600 Montagnards and no road going anywhere, maybe he decided he better be a nicer person and a better leader. So I don't know. Maybe that happened. Maybe it did. But it seemed to be that way because the camps survived for longer periods of time.
Have any of you guys been back to that Camduck area?
I have.
Yeah, and I have too.
What was it like when you went back?
Well, I went back in '98 with that casualty recovery team, and it was not even remotely like it is now. You know, the town was there, but it was very, kind of provisional looking. And nothing had been developed. The road was very bad between Da Nang and Camduck because it wasn't smooth, or in fact they didn't even want to use it. They wanted to go in a helicopter because they could charge us more money. But the helicopters are old Russian rattle traps that were dangerous as well as expensive. So we went bouncing along that road. But again, we weren't there as tourists. We were there to look for remains, but it has since been radically improved from the pictures I've seen.
Jim, hold on a minute here. Edison's got to disappear. I wanted to get him to make some comments on Nonsan before he disappeared. Edison?
I was there in late 69, 70. The year I was there, it was pretty quiet, actually. We had all CIDG in the camp, no Montagnards. And I did 5 combat patrols in the area. About the only thing, we would run into small groups that were just transiting the area. No incoming at the camp. Just fairly atypical experience. Not that I'm complaining about it, but nothing at all like earlier in the war in 67, 68. Lots of booby traps, mostly American hand grenades, which made dandy booby traps. But all in all, fairly quiet year. I enjoyed being a medic. Love that. And came home and went back to college and went and finished my degree and went back into the Army through the OCS program and ended up flying Hueys for about 10 years and was a communications electronics officer. Right now I'm living in Yancey County, North Carolina. That's Western North Carolina, and working as a veteran service officer for the county. So still working with veterans. And that's about it.
Edison, what did you retire as?
As a major, retired in April of 90
Okay.
and ended up working with Booz Allen and Hamilton for 10 years. We did, you guys all know about the Bosnia peacekeeping mission. Well, Booz Allen did a communications interoperability program with European Command. And we bought, the team bought together communications elements from, we started with 10 countries. When I came home, we had 29 countries participating, and we would bring together communications systems from the different countries to see what would interoperate and what didn't. And so you would have a system, something like a French handset connected to a German switchboard, connected over an American long-haul satellite system, terminating on an English switchboard connected to a Lithuanian handset. Fascinating program. And we did switchboards, we did high-freq radio systems, we did satellite communication systems, and tactical computer networks. And we had Russia participated, of course. We had most of the stands in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. Most of them were participating by the time I came home. I worked with the program for 3 years before I came home and retired again. Fascinating though. Some of the rules of the program were, if you bought it to the program, it couldn't be locked. So you left all your crypto gear at home. Everything was open. And the Eastern Europeans especially are hard drinkers, man. They can drink Americans under the table without even breathing hard. And one of the other, we would have 3 planning conferences and we would do the communications conference. Well, at each planning conference and each communications conference, we would have a dinner at the close of the conferences. And each country delegation was required sometime during the dinner to stand up and sing one of their national songs. And I quickly discovered that Americans don't sing very well. You know, we don't have a pub culture in this country. And unless you were in a church choir, you probably didn't sing very much after you got out of school. So our delegation kind of struggled with that part of the program. Interesting experience though.
Which song did you sing? Do you remember?
Pardon?
Which song did you sing?
Oh, it was stuff, mostly Stephen Foster kind of stuff. Old Susanna, Coming Around the Mountain. They were kind of staples. But I just thought it was kind of an interesting take on American culture. And you know, looking back on growing up, we don't sing. You know, we don't gather around the campfire and sing anymore like we did 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I'm going to have to leave. I have a dentist appointment and I have to drive to, but it's been a pleasure participating and wish everyone the best. Take care. Bye.
See you, Jim. I'll send you those pictures.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed the meeting, guys. It was a long time ago and in a galaxy far away.
It sure was.
We'll see you later.
Okay, Steve.
Right.
So I was with the group of Camp Duck survivors that opened Nong Song. We went out of Da Nang into the Marine base at Anwa. And I think in that group were Bob McCoy, Gene Bernhardt, Jim Duncan, Van Schmittou, Tom Bedeau, Eduardo Jackson was a team sergeant, and it was really weird because we were inside the Marine perimeter and he got shot in the left thigh. One shot, broad daylight. No one knew where it came from. Must have been a sniper. And that was it for him. Then we walked out of Anwa into Nong Song to reestablish the camp, which was the old Marine base at 452. And when they were supplying us with timbers to build all of our bunkers, I remember a 123 coming over the river, and they were going to dump the lumber into the river, and the bundle of lumber that was coming out of the 123 got unbundled. So the straps that were holding it together, and it all just kind of like went down into the village, and it killed a couple of people and pretty much injured some other people pretty bad. That was one of the events that happened there. There was a free fire zone just south of the camp. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Let me share the screen over here, and we'll see if this is going to help at all. I located the camp over here, but I don't see I never saw anything on the map that suggested, other than the reports I got, that this is the correct place to locate the camp. Bob?
It was the old Marine base, and it was the elevation was 452 meters. It was Hill 452. And then at the bottom of that was right on, if you went up the camp from the river, it was pretty much a straight run with a Jeep, but just below it was an open plain. I can't really see that well on that map.
I don't see 452 on the map at all. I see 454 up over here.
Maybe 454. I thought it was 452.
So you were up on the top of the elevation, not down here in the valley.
No, it was right on the camp was right on the top. Chet Basher was our XO, and I got pictures of him taking a shower off the edge of the top. That's and I've got other pictures coming in from helicopters onto that. I can send those to you.
Mm-hmm. Here's the rest of it over here. But right here, this is very steep. How did you get up and down?
Mostly by Jeep, and there was one operation that I went with Van Schmittou on. We left at dusk, and we were trying to do something in the grid down below, and we had a Tiger go by us. We had not a lot of luck getting down without taking a couple of real quick drops, because there were some steep drops coming down that.
Now, is this supposed to be a path of some sort here?
There's a road coming up from the bottom by the river that goes right to the top of the camp, but otherwise there were no means of getting there or means of egress that I recall. There could have been some trails, but all the indig came up that way, and so didn't everything that we received that wasn't brought in by helicopter came up that way.
Interesting. What do you recall about the decisions to reopen the camp? Is it that you had these people around and you decided how to use them up, or the people from Kham Duc, you had to find a place for them, or was there a tactical reason that Nong Son would be significant?
I don't know. I know it was a site of the only coal mine in Vietnam. And there were some signs of some French buildings in that area, but strategically, I have no idea why they sent us out. I do know that we sat around Da Nang with all of those guys for a week or 2 weeks, and everybody was getting a little restless, and I didn't know if they wanted to just open another camp just to get them out of there, or what the reason was.
Where was the coal mine? Was it operational?
It was not operational at that time. No.
Okay, because I don't see any means of getting any coal out of the valley.
There weren't too many roads down there, that's for sure. But that's the one thing I do remember is they said it was the site of the only coal mine in Vietnam. Did you remember that, Rod?
I don't remember that at all. No, I don't.
Rob, were you at Nong Son or at Cam Duc?
Well, I was at Kham Duc, but I'm on for a little while, but
Okay.
Kham Duc is the primary location.
All right, but is any of this map on Nong Son looking familiar to you at all?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, I'm learning today.
I don't know.
Where is Cam Duck from here?
Oh, Cam Duc is way off somewhere in the west. Yeah.
Okay.
It was really considered to be sort of a border camp, although it was not that close to the border. And I've got I didn't set up the map properly when I came up here, so this is just the static map. I've got to take some time off and organize the map. So, yeah, I think this has got to be wrong, because you're describing it being on top of a hill. On the other hand, I can't see any way to get up to the top of that hill.
I'm gonna send everybody a quick photo. I'm gonna dig one out right now.
Okay, Bob, I'm going to authorize you to share the screen.
I'll only send one, and it'll be a view of the top of the camp.
Okay. Are you going to send it by chat, or are you going to send it by?
I'll send it by email. I don't know how to send it by chat, but I'll send it to you in a Gmail.
Okay. When you've got it. Now, there was, in fact, in this area, another TDY camp at Bateau over here. And that was on a rise. If you were operating in that area, Rod or Bob, do you recall that old TDY camp?
I do not.
No, I don't. I think I was too early for that.
You should have that photo now, Steve. It'll show the very top of the camp, and
Okay.
it'll show Chet Basher taking a shower over the edge of it. Another one.
Okay.
Rod, you should have that too, because I sent it to everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Here are the pictures. And which is the best one to look at here? Okay, am I sharing that with you now, the picture?
I don't see it on the screen.
You don't see it on the screen, okay.
See, the topo is still on the screen. Now it's gone.
Yeah, okay, let's try it again. Okay, here's the camp.
Oh, there
Yep.
we go.
Now,
That should be familiar to Rod.
is that
Yeah.
a road here? Is that a road where I'm pointing my cursor?
I'm just looking. Yes, that's a road.
Okay, so it's gonna go down the hill here.
Yes, it goes down a hill. Yep.
Yeah, that was very steep.
Yeah. Interesting. And this was an old Marine outpost at one point?
least that's what, you know, I was told that it was the old Marine outpost on 452 and that it had been abandoned. And I don't know the significance of it for us to go in there, but when we went in, there was nothing left but a few busted up bunkers, and we started from scratch.
Was there any evidence that anybody had been there in the interim? Do they booby trap things, for example?
I don't recall any booby traps or anybody getting injured that way. In the first couple of weeks over there, it was pretty quiet.
Did you do any leveling or changing of it, or is that pretty well what the Marines left you with?
That's what the Marines left us with, because anything that we did by hand. There was no equipment brought in for that.
Okay.
And you know, on occasion, on some of the camps, I know they brought in Army engineers, and they ran heavy equipment to level the airfields and things like that. But anything that we got that wasn't brought right into camp was dropped on the river.
So you had no airfield.
No,
And is that pad over there a helipad where the flagpole is? Is that some kind of helipad, or was it a helipad over here?
oh, I see where you're pointing, but I mean, I think that's where we landed. I wouldn't have called it a helipad. Everything was small on the top of that hill.
Yeah. What was this thing over here?
I don't see where I don't know if that was a talk. I'm not remembering it.
Hey, Bob, what was so strategic about that location?
I was just telling Steve that I didn't know. I mean, they just sent us out there, and I was just a lowly demo guy on that group, so they didn't share that with us. They just said, you pointed us in that direction and said, go out there.
Rod, we haven't heard that much from you here. Tell us a little bit about what you did and what the transition was going from Kamduk to Nongsan.
Well, I didn't. I spent about 7 months at Kamduk and with various temporary assignments elsewhere, and then went back to Da Nang to be the S1 at the C team, and so a lot of it's very murky in my mind. I'm afraid I don't have a very good memory of all that. I did go back in around 2005, and the camp was just demolished. It was nothing, including, if you recall, that statue we had in the center of the camp as you came in. That was gone. And the village was, beefed up more than it was when I was there, but actually had a little hotel. And there was a recovery team there working, and they found some stuff while they were there, so that was interesting to look at. That from stuff from the fall of the camp in what was that, 68?
Right.
So it's interesting to see. There were no people around who were there at the time. This was all wiped clean and start over. But it was kind of a shock to see the camp, which was just nothing, just mounds of dirt and rock. And I worried about going in some of the places because they might be booby trapped, but I did. I went in everywhere, and quite an experience to be there. I've got some pictures I'll send you of that. So other than that, my experience was a normal XO at the A team, and then back and forth. I did a lot of ferrying back and forth between the camp and Da Nang, and the other camps. I visited the other camps, and well, all the others, you know the names, and that was interesting to see the way the various camps were structured. So I wish I had more to give you. I'm going to give you the roster lists I have when I can pull them out of my file, so you have them to connect to. I could be wrong about the numbers of names, but there were certainly some missing people. And if you'll notice, your roster has empty spaces, as you well know, for 66, 67.
Right.
Just a lot of empty spaces. So I'll try to fill in some of those blanks for you.
I would appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for all the work you've done.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, and it's a lot of little insights into what was going on by talking with you
Yeah.
folks.
Yes, I bet.
And I hope that that you will continue this on your own, and that I'll continue this, although I'm going to be working for a long time, just getting all the rest of the camps done.
Yeah.
So
Well, good luck. Good luck with that. We'll try to maintain some momentum here. And I've got to go. I've got a 2:00 meeting, but I really thank you for doing this. This has been very interesting to me. Take care, guys.
you too.
Bye.
Bye, Rod.
You're supposed to be traveling today too. You're in a car now.
Yep. Getting ready to hang it up, Steve. Thank you very much for everything you've done.
Well, happy to see you. You're going to be back later this afternoon?
I'm going to try to squeeze some in somewhere between 3 and 4, but right now I'm going to have to take off on you. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
See you guys. Bye, Ivan.
Jim, you have the earliest knowledge of this area in there, because you had the team that came in, and then you went off to 3 Corps, right? You set up.
Yeah, we went down to a place called Hong Kong, but I have a piece of information I bet you don't have in your archives there, Steve.
Let me know. What?
If you remember the actor Raymond Burr,
Oh yeah,
Perry Mason,
yes.
I came back from a patrol. I had been over in Laos, and I came back and everybody said, you missed a visitor that we had. And it was Perry Mason had come and visit our camp. But I was gone, so I didn't get to meet him.
Well,
So if you're looking at Special Forces trivia, there's a little piece for you.
well, let's see here. 2, 5, 2, and 6.
He's got his own library there.
Yeah, I can see that. It's quite impressive. Well, what I guess I was really hoping that somebody from my team would show up beside me. I was the youngest man on my team, and we had 22 guys, outstanding men, as you know, I'm sure all of your colleagues were as well. But I remember at Fort Bragg, up until the time we went in January of 65, it had all been TDY with the 5th and the 7th, going over there for 3-month tours. And I can remember Colonel Roy was our commanding officer at that time, calling everybody together at that big field house and announcing that the 5th Special Forces was being transferred en masse to Vietnam.
I don't think you can see it very well here.
I can't see it. I can't see it very well.
Yeah. In any event, this is the monthly magazine the 5th Group had, and this was in 67. they published the pictures. I don't know what days. Oh, he had 10 trips to Vietnam. Raymond Burr. It says in here. So
Yeah.
yeah, and there's another picture again, not terribly visible, but
Yeah, I can make that one out a little better. Yeah, I'll be darned.
Doesn't look like him.
he's reading the Green Beret magazine.
If any of you guys have been to Sanibel Island, there's a shell museum on Sanibel Island in Florida. And he's one of the benefactors. He was apparently a big shell guy. So,
Shell, as in seashells.
yeah, so really when the fifth was transferred in January of 65, that was really when the buildup actually really got started. It started to escalate. And of course, you know, the bombing had taken place in North Vietnam, and so at that time, though, Cam Duck was a place where a lot of advanced teams came in from other units to train with us. So we had SAS guys from England, and we had Marine Force Recon guys, and different units coming there to go out on patrols. I got to be friends with 2 Australian commandos who were extremely impressive, and they spent quite a bit of time with us, teaching us their techniques of jungle warfare, which was pretty impressive. They had spent a lot of time in Malaya, and so for me as a young sergeant, it was pretty impressive. And of course, we had the Chinese Nongs, which I don't know if they were still around, Steve. Chinese mercenaries.
They were around, but they sort of got drawn into the Mike forces later. They used to be basically camp security people for the Americans.
Well, a number of them earlier, when the discussion was going on about Dien Bien Phu, my experience with the Nungs were they were families of soldiers.
Yeah.
Many of them had been in Dien Bien Phu and Indochina War veterans. And when they moved to your camp, I mean, we had their kids and their goats and everything else. They came with them. And then we worked with the mountain tribes as well. And that was pretty interesting, to say the least. So at that time, the camp was really sort of a hodgepodge of putting together different units, getting really more. But I will tell you the one thing that was amazing when you look at what happened there in 68, there were traces of buildup all around us all the time. So the sense was it was just a matter of time before that camp was going to get overrun. And it was so isolated.
Yeah. What you had basically, you were just north of the I-Corps 2 Corps boundary. And the NVA used political boundaries as routes. So they had a route to go all the way into Binh Dinh province, but they stayed on the boundary because they knew that the teams both north and south of that boundary had limits as to where they could go. So if they're less likely to be caught on the border of the Corps, and Cam Duck was on one side and Doc Peck was on the other side. So they walked right between them, and they tried not to make any disturbance because if somebody paid attention to them, then they'd be out after them. So that was one of the things that became apparent. I had one camp commander, I think it was Plateau G, who complained that he wasn't allowed to go up to the border area. Just for that reason, they didn't want him crossing the border because there's a problem with blue on blue interaction. If you get too close to each other, the likelihood is people shooting at each other. increases. So now, one of the worst days that Special Forces had was they ran into problems in Indian province on both sides of the border. They had an operation going on in Indian province. They lost about 6 people, and then they lost about 5 people at one of the A camps on the other side of the border. And that was when we actually were interfering with some major unit movement going through the border, and we were on both sides of that border. So,
Well, was the river the border?
no. This is between I Corps and 2 Corps.
Oh,
It was
okay,
just mountains.
okay.
There's no really good landmarks over there. So
Well, in 68, wasn't that when the airplane got shot down, taking civilians out?
yeah, they lost the airplane, the S-5, in
Right,
Da Nang was killed on that plane. Basically, it was a civic action program movement to get everybody out of the valley. That was the major casualty they had in the whole operation. Here they were socked in, surrounded, and somebody had the good sense to pull everybody out. That included 2 battalions from the Americal, the SF people, the SOG people. Everybody that was there in Kamduk took them all out in 2 days.
well, was Knock the Buck overrun before Kamduk was?
Yeah, Naktuak was overrun much earlier.
Okay.
Not much earlier, like 2 weeks earlier.
Okay,
But one of the things that Jim writes about in his book is the fact that the North Vietnamese prepared for this battle, having camera crews and all, and they expected or had hoped to turn this into the images of the Dien Bien Phu, where they captured all these Americans and they came out with their hands up.
Right.
And was just as the Paris talks were actually getting underway. So what they had hoped for was to have this similar to Dien Bien Phu, dispiriting event for the American population, the way Dien Bien Phu dispirited the French. And Jim was able to talk to my brain fogs up, but one of the American generals that was very active in Paris as in the delegation, and he confirmed that information. They were really counting on it, and they were counting. What had happened is that the weather in May, at a certain point in May, the monsoon season comes into Kamduk, as you well know, Jim. And they were counting on that weather coming in and stopping air support. And that's when they were going to pounce, as soon as the weather got bad. Well, Abrams was about ready to go home. And he knew that Westmoreland was about ready to go home. And he knew he's going to turn it all over to Abrams. If it goes well, Abrams is going to get the credit. If it goes poorly, Westmoreland's going to get the blame.
yeah.
So he finally decided, and it took him about half a day to make that decision. And I don't know, there's no tapes there of his decision-making process. But he said, okay, take everybody out of there. And he implemented what was called Operation Grand Slam, which was all U.S. aviation assets were going to be put on under a single command.
Okay.
They had absolutely everything in the theater available to them to move people out of Kamduk and to support Kamduk. And
Well, Jim,
they
wasn't,
did a great job.
I'm sorry. Wasn't Tom Perry there at the same time? He got MIA there. out of Camduck.
Who?
Tom Perry.
No, it was not Perry. It was your friend Miller.
Yeah, he was killed at Noctavok, but I'm looking at your list here. Let me come up with the name because I thought Perry was out, not Perry, but just a minute.
The guy from my team that was killed was Faber Bradshaw.
Yeah, that was on the earlier time. We're looking at 68 right now.
Okay. Thought I saw his name here. I know Charles Red was there. God, I can't find his name now, but
Ron Miller.
who?
Ron Miller.
No,
Thomas Perry was killed somewhere at that time. 2
Yeah.
days before. I'm not sure where he was.
well, Perry, I think, was with the Mike Force that went out to Camdock.
I think he was at Noctavok.
Oh, Noctavok, okay.
He was killed at the same time Miller was killed. As Glenn Miller was killed. Ronald Miller was another Dave Miller.
Yeah. Because he was a medic.
Ron might have been killed with the SOG team that was in there. Because he was killed on the 12th, and he was part of SOG at that point.
Okay.
And so that could well be. But it was two Millers. It was Ron Miller on the second time around, and on the 12th, and on the 10th it was Glenn Miller.
Yeah, he's the one that was when I first got to Hatan. He was there. Then he, like I said, he went home for his dad. Then he came back and he went to Noctavok. Now that I'm getting old, but my eyes are going bad.
Jim,
Yes.
what's that company you were doing? You're working with there. You originally were up by you, but then seemed to have moved down to St. Louis.
Well, my native hometown is St. Louis, and I have had for 27 years a fundraising consulting company. And the company you contacted, it was my first company, and I'm still active with that. I called Holmes. I named the company after Sherlock Holmes, Holmes, Radford, and Avalon. And we work with nonprofits. We just helped the Shriners build a new children's hospital in St. Louis, as an example, and we raised the money for it. And so that's what I do. And then we moved to Stevens Point, Wisconsin, 32 years ago from New Jersey. And at that time, I worked in New York City, where I ran the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. So my career has been largely in the nonprofit sector. So you contacted me through my former company, but I'm still active with it as well. So that's what I do, and I got to go to work pretty soon. But I have to tell you,
I'm glad we were able to meet up with you here.
well, I want to commend you for your diligence and your scholarly abilities. It's been amazing. I will say, as a young person, I was 21-year-old sergeant in the 5th Special Forces, and I just was totally impressed with the men that I was with. And then at that time, I was exposed to the mountain tribes, and that led me to actually going back to college instead of going into the CIA, which a lot of guys were doing back then. And I ended up my first career as an anthropologist. I taught anthropology for 12 years. And that was all inspired by my experience there working with mountain tribes, mainly out of Camduck. And
Well, the mountain tribes of Camduck were primarily very hidden tribes. There
Yeah.
was it Coe or something?
they were very, it was pretty Yeah, I can remember going with my medic on our very first mission we went on. We got off a helicopter and walked down a trail, and this guy stepped out of the bush. He had a loincloth on and a crossbow, and his teeth were all filed down to a point. So we were there to teach him the art of modern warfare.
Mhm.
But they were totally amazing people. They really were. And they loved the special forces because we took care of them.
Well,
And
I
treated them
thought
fairly.
they hid from the special forces. They hid from everybody. That particular tribe was very, very secretive.
Well, the South Vietnamese call them Moi, M-O-I, which
Yeah,
means
that's
savage.
generic
Yeah.
for the Montagnards. But
Yeah.
this particular tribe, according to Jerry Hickey, was very reclusive.
Well, I can see why.
This guy jumped down the trail from you. It's a wonder you didn't have an itchy trigger finger.
I guess I consider the whole thing being a very fortunate to have survived that. So,
Jerry Hickey, who was, in fact, an anthropologist in Vietnam and in Laos, wrote a series of books. If you were teaching anthropology, you must have bumped into him somewhere along the line in terms of his work. But he started out in Vietnam writing on the village customs, Vietnamese village customs. Then he went on to the Montagnards and just did an excellent job. When I was in Vietnam, he came up to the sea detachment that I was at. And the commander said, "We're going to have lunch today, and all the officers will be there." That never happened in Vietnam to me. And I come in, and here's this guy in a white shirt, short sleeves, sitting at the table, just not very impressive in stature. And the commander said, "This guy knows everything about Vietnam. Just ask him anything you want to know about it." And he proceeded to answer questions, and he really did. And many years later, I had occasions to get hold of him. And they were spaced, so he never remembered it. And at one point, I got hold of him, and he said, "I can't talk now. My publisher has refused to publish my memoir, and my computer won't let me get the file. I can't do anything with it. And I can't talk to you now." I said, "Sir, just hold on a minute. First of all, if you're printing a memoir, I'll get it published. It will be published. I'll do it, or I'll find somebody else to do it. If I don't find somebody else to do it, I'll do it. And as far as your computer is concerned, what kind of computer you have, what kind of word processing software you're using." And he had this really antique computer. And this is before PCs. This is one of these it was before Radio Shack, before Trash 80. And he was running the original version of Microsoft Word, but it wasn't even called Word at that time. It was something before that. And I happened to be in the business of leasing computers. And I had a friend up there in Michigan, in Chicago, Antioch, whatever. Antioch was a college north of Chicago. And I called him up and I said, go down there and help this guy. We got his stuff converted over to PC format. His good friend had just moved. That was name jumped out. The guy had been in Berkeley. He'd been in Vietnam. Prolific. Douglas Pike wrote on the communists in Vietnam, and then he moved to Texas Tech. I called him up, and he looked at the manuscript. Texas Tech published the manuscript right away, There's no question about that. So anyway, you were reaching in the back there to pick up one of his books, I think. And Jerry agreed to allow me he wrote to all of his publishers and got the copyright back. And I published all of his work except for his two last works, the memoir and the fiction. I published them all on a CD-ROM. Just a Jerry Hickey reader. So you had a book there in your hand.
Yeah, I was looking at this one. You probably have seen it. Yeah,
Oh, that's the Special Forces. That's the Special Forces handbook.
yeah, right.
That's what Hickey had. Is he had about 4 or 5 books specifically on Vietnam, one of which you just couldn't buy anywhere. Somebody in Europe was offering it for $1,000 or whatever. So anyway, he sent me that book and I scanned it and put it all on the CD-ROM. So, that back here in that pile of books, there's just lots of stuff.
Hey, Steve, who wrote the book on Kham Duck that you showed a while ago?
That was Jim McElroy, the guy who was on the
Okay.
screen there. So it's interesting. This personalities involved. When the Montagnard Revolt took place in 1964, Hickey came up to look at things over. He went back to Saigon to report to Westmoreland. Told Westmoreland what the Colonel Freund was doing with the Montagnards, and Westmoreland said, "Get Freund out of there. We don't need a Lawrence of the Montagnards." So Hickey was in every place that an anthropologist should not have been in.
Huh.
He was there during the Montagnard Revolt. When Roger Donlin got the Medal of Honor, he was underneath a truck in the compound.
Was that right?
That's right. And he lost the notes on your tribe were lost during that battle. He had just come from putting together some notes on it, and they disappeared that night.
Okay. Well, Steve, I'm going to have to jump off, and Ivan, nice meeting you. It looks like you got a guest in there with the same last name.
Yeah, that's my son. He's never been in the service, but he's been following around with everything that I've done over all these years.
Well, that's neat.
Thank you.
One of my sons, I have 3 sons and 2 daughters, and one of my sons was telling me about his trip to Vietnam as a tourist just a few years ago. So it's a very different place.
Yeah.
I feel grateful that I was there in a way, and also that I survived, and I was able to go out. My wife and I are celebrating 53 years of being together, 5 kids and 9 grandkids. So I feel very fortunate. I feel very honored, Steve, that you contacted me, and I was saddened to see that most of my team is gone now. But it was interesting to be updated, so to speak.
I'm disappointed that not more people showed up for this particular meeting, but the total of both or the 2 camps and 1 B team, I only had about 27 people that I'd actually been able to make contact with. That was slightly smaller than what I usually run into. I usually get 30 to 40 people.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, Jim, you were talking about the people over there. Giannis Zumwalt, he was a medic over there at 105. He's got a barista down in Saigon. He married a Vietnamese lady, and he's running his coffee shop down there. He loves it.
Is that right?
He called me from Vietnam.
Yeah.
But the email I had for him didn't work. Are you in touch with him?
I've got his email out of chapter 47.
Yeah, give me the email, because it was a Comcast, Jay Zumitz at Comcast, and it bounced. I just noticed this morning.
Well, he'd been trying to come back. He used to come back every well, for 4 or 5 months, but with COVID, they've locked him down there. And so he hasn't been back to the States, I think, in 2 years.
Yeah, no, he called me up. He says, I'm in Fuquock Island right now.
That's, yeah. And the pictures he shows, he's wearing his sandals and shorts. I mean, he doesn't own long pants until he gets back to the States.
Well,
Okay,
fellas, I'm gonna have to take off, but Steve, thanks a lot. Ivan, been nice meeting you, and
Thanks, Jim.
Brent, I'm glad you're following your pop and documenting some of his career. It's really great. So let's stay in touch, Steve, and if I could be of any service to you, just let me know.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Steve, I saw that